Lawyers of Reddit. What is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? Hey everyone, before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so we can reach 1,000 subs together. Thanks for the support. Now let's get into it. My house was robbed. Among the stolen items were several of my suits and about 100 ties I had collected. The thief, however, left fingerprints on a hard plastic box I used to store spare change. 3 months later, the same thief was caught robbing another house in my neighborhood by the same detectives on my case. His fingerprints matched the ones taken from my home. At his arraignment, I saw him walk in wearing one of my stolen suits and a tie. I immediately told the district attorney, but he said it would be difficult to prove. Then I pointed out the tie. It was a one-of-a-kind San Francisco street map design, and I still had all the documentation to prove it. The DA's eyes widened, and he informed the judge. The judge immediately charged the thief with possession of stolen property. The thief's lawyer had no words. It was the perfect ending to a rough ordeal. Story 2. A little late to the party, but here's mine. Not my client, but one I witnessed. I worked for a company that was acquiring a small tech startup. The COO of that startup was well-liked, but there were quiet concerns about his conduct. A walk-away package had been proposed for him because a sales department employee had filed HR complaints and hired a lawyer. During a meeting with the company's retained lawyers, the COO repeatedly denied ever having private contact with this employee, insisting he only interacted with her in group settings. The lawyers asked him multiple times in different ways, and every time he denied any outside contact. Later, when we met with the employee and her lawyer, they presented a greeting card that came with a bouquet of flowers from the COO, purchased through his personal florist account, tied to his credit card. When confronted, his defense was, "I never had contact with her. It's not like I delivered the flowers myself." He was immediately terminated for cause, lost his walkaway package, and the employee was granted PTO until after the acquisition before being transferred to another company in our group. Story 3. Minor traffic cases can sometimes be the hardest because they're simple, fast, and if a key detail is missed, you often don't have time to recover. I once had a client cited for driving 70 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. Normally, that would be no big deal. If the driver took a course, the court would usually reduce or dismiss it since her record was clean. But when I showed up, I found out she had been driving 70 miles per hour on an unplowed snow lane, weaving around other cars moving cautiously in the plowed lane. I didn't even realize that was physically possible. The officer testified he'd already cut her a break by not citing her for reckless driving. The judge agreed and refused to reduce the charge. When I called her afterward, she admitted it was true. She'd just forgotten to mention that detail. If she had told me up front, I'd have advised her not to waste money hiring me or taking an 8-hour course because there was no way it would get reduced. At least she took it well and didn't argue, but it was a perfect example of how leaving out one detail can ruin your entire case.